Hello and welcome to Top Story. You don't hear much about President George W. Bush these days as the world focuses on the race to succeed him. But he's keen to show that he still matters. On Wednesday, he'll be the first US leader to visit Israel in 9 years. That, coupled with a trip to the West Bank town of Ramallah, is aimed at keeping Mideast peace on track after the landmark US summit in Annapolis last November. Bush is then scheduled to continue his tour to several Gulf states. That leg is being seen as an attempt to isolate Washington's arch-foe Tehran. Well, to weigh the ambitious agenda of this visit, I'm joined now by Susan Sachs from the Canadian daily The Global Mail. She's a former New York Times bureau chief for Middle Eastern affairs. Thank you very much for being on Top Story today. Is President Bush following in Bill Clinton's footsteps by making this push late in his presidency?
Well, Bush is in a position that some American presidents find themselves in at the end of their terms, where they're trying to show that they're still relevant because they're getting more and more irrelevant on the domestic scene. So they usually make a big push on foreign affairs. And in Bush's case, this is such a dramatic change. He hasn't traveled much. He's mostly had foreign leaders come and visit him at his Texas ranch. So I think while the White House is trying to tamp down any great expectations from this trip, it certainly is Bush's attempt to at least kind of try to tailor his legacy a little bit.
Do you think it's a change of style? I mean, he was never into knocking heads together, and yet here he is actually going to Israel and to the West Bank.
I don't think we're going to see much of a change in style. He's not going to be doing any tripartite meetings where he's having all of the players in together. He's definitely, as you say, not a guy who is much into the Clinton style of getting everyone together and getting into the details and the nitty-gritty of negotiations. I think it's going to be bilateral meetings, some speeches, a lot of photo ops, but you're not going to see him getting into the real details of negotiating on this peace settlement.
Is that a problem then when you talk about keeping the momentum going after Annapolis? I mean, you presumably do have to get into the details as an outside leader.
Well, he's appointed a Mideast envoy, who's General James Jones, former NATO commander, which I think is a pretty clear indication that the security issues that Israel is raising are going to be paramount. I don't think it's a major problem. The visit of any American president, a personal visit, can't help but sort of revitalize whatever's going on the ground. And you've got the Israeli Prime Minister Olmert very much weakened. You've got President Abbas on the Palestinian side also quite weak. It can't help but give them some boost to have the visit of a president.
And he might be able to calm tensions given the pressures on Prime Minister Olmert to take tougher action against Hamas.
He could. I think perhaps the best one can expect out of this visit is some sense of the direction the United States is going to go in and how far the United States is willing to support Israel's demands for great security control over the Gaza and the West Bank, even in a peace negotiation, and to see how far he might be willing to pressure Israel to really make good on its promise to stop settlement building.
Let's move on to the other part of the trip. It's curious that the Gulf states are US allies, and yet they've been cozying up to Iran. How do you think Bush might play that?
It's an interesting question. There are a lot of people in the Middle East who believe there's no way that the Gulf states, for example, and Egypt could be making these overtures to Iran that they have in the past couple of weeks without at least the tacit approval of the United States. I'm not so sure that necessarily is the case. I think it's definitely in the Arab countries' interest, the Sunni Arab countries' interest, to calm the waters with Iran as much as possible. I think what Bush is going to do is he's going to try, at least on a public level, to underline and underscore that his policy that Iran needs to be isolated, it's evil, it's a danger, and at the same time, privately with these Arab leaders, he's going to be trying to put his own spin on the National Intelligence Report that came out just a month or so ago that said Iran was no longer working on its nuclear weapons program. So he's going to try to finesse that, I think, to keep the Arab leaders in line to as as part of his policy to isolate Iran.
And presumably Saudi Arabia is a good method of applying leverage because it's perhaps concerned the most about Iran's nuclear activities out of the Gulf states.
Exactly. But the other Gulf states, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, are actually closer. They have their own national problems with Iran over disputes over various islands and territorial disputes. But they also are host to the American Fifth Fleet. There's a lot of areas where the American pressure can have some effect in those Gulf states as well as Saudi Arabia.
In general terms, what do you think this visit could do to change America's reputation in the Middle East?
Nothing. I think the damage done by the war in Iraq, the damage done by threats last year coming out of the White House, coming out of Washington of a potential strike against Iran, the big high-flown talk about bringing democracy to the Middle East and cracking down on tyrants, and the very little action on that. I don't think there's much that a president's visit can do to, at least this president's visit can do about the American image.
So it's a bit late in the day, really, to be doing this?
It's probably late in the day, and there's probably been too much damage already to American image.
Do you get a sense that that Middle Eastern elites are looking forward to a new president from whichever camp he or she emerges?
Absolutely, they always do at the end of a presidential term. Figure they can get a better deal, get a closer ties with the next guy or woman.
Right. Okay. Well, just very briefly, Susan Sachs, this national intelligence estimate, has that really changed U.S. policy overall? Whoever's in charge of the White House, I mean, in terms of engaging with the Gulf states and containing Iran?
I think it has. I think a lot of the drum beating and war talk that was so common in Washington up until this National Intelligence Report came out has really petered out, has really dimmed at this point. And I think that although I wouldn't expect a major American change towards Iran and the policy, that certainly the intelligence report has taken some of the bite.
Okay, thank you very much. Susan Sachs from the Globe and Mail Canadian daily newspaper. Do join us again for Top Story at the same time tomorrow morning.